this moment. The stock market has been trending low all day. The Dow is down 419 points, S&P is down 30 points, and the NASDAQ is down 154 points. Coming up, you might have noticed a change in our beautiful weather. We'll take a look at that. And traffic next. KSL News Time is 1:02.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Are you stressing about your IRS tax problems? Have you received notices from the IRS threatening to garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, or seize your property? You need an ally. Allies Tax Relief has tax attorneys and enrolled agents that are ready to fight for you. They have saved millions for taxpayers just like you. Allies Tax Relief can help put a stop to IRS collections and, most importantly, negotiate your tax debt. Here's Brenda, a happy client of Allies Tax Relief.
I owed the IRS around $57,000, and they're about to start garnishing my paychecks. I heard a commercial on the radio about Allies Tax Relief, so I thought I'd give them a call. After a day, they were able to at least stop the garnishments, and after a few months of negotiations, I walked away owing the IRS only $301.
If you owe the IRS, call Allies Tax Relief right now for your free consultation. Call 800-230-5174. 800-230-5174. That's 800-230-5174.
When you think of Utah's homeless, who do you see? They are people with names and faces, and many are in dire circumstances. They are men and women, and sometimes children. Many are living on the street, in a car, or in a shelter. Some choose to be homeless. Most do not. Many experience the challenges of addiction or mental illness. All are vulnerable. Homelessness is a crisis, one that affects us all. Utah is building a coalition of community leaders and concerned citizens united to end the plight of homelessness. Homelessness should not mean hopelessness. Learn more at projecthumandignity.org. A message from Utah Impact Partnership.
Hey guys, do you know your T level? Revive Men's Health here in Salt Lake City is helping you take that first step toward better health and enhanced intimacy with a free testosterone level test, exam, and consultation. Plus, for this month only, qualified patients can kickstart their treatment with a free supply of ED medication. Revive's customized ED treatments can provide immediate results, restore blood flow naturally, and even bring spontaneity back into your love life. With both in-person and telemedicine appointments available, plus free shipping directly to you, Revive takes the hassle out of treating low T and ED. Having an optimal testosterone level can change your whole life, and it starts with knowing your T level. Take that first step and book your free testosterone test, free exam, and free consultation, and kickstart your treatment with a free supply of ED medication this month only. Call Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City at 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Some leftover slow speeds. It could be either direction of I-15 in Salt Lake County between 2100 South and Sandy. We have an auto-ped accident, Highland Drive, 3400 South in Mill Creek, and a crash at 114th South, 3600 West. For fabulous food, atmosphere, and tradition, visit Five All's Restaurant. Five All's offers memorable dining experiences for any occasion: birthdays, anniversaries, proms, graduation, engagement, and more. Visit fivealls.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Scattered showers and thunderstorms are possible this afternoon, and more rain and mountain snow are expected tomorrow. Highs today 68, which we've already hit, and highs on Friday and Saturday in the 50s. Right now, it is 61 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. I'm Tammy Kikuchi from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, 6 months ago, Representative Mike Johnson was probably not known by most Americans, bit of a backbencher, not a lot front and center. And then, of course, everything changed, as is often the case in critical moments of politics and policy. And now, of course, he's been in the middle of some of the crucial conversations around national policy, international policy as well. And we want to go beyond the headlines of what we think we know about Speaker Mike Johnson. And whether you like his politics or dislike his politics, there's something interesting and some important lessons beyond the headlines. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, last week, of course, we saw the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, go forward very boldly, saying, I will do what I think is right, and even if it costs me my job, so be it. The job of the Speaker is to bring it to the floor and let the will of the Congress move things along. And so as we look at the Speaker of the House, again, not widely known to most Americans until recently, and someone who's done that deep dive that gives us a different perspective, not just the headline stuff and not just what you're going to read on social media. It is a brilliant deep dive piece, one of the best pieces I've seen in The Atlantic in a very long time. Elena Calabre, staff writer there at The Atlantic, on the accidental speaker. It's a great read. You need to check it out at Atlantic.com. And Elena, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So let's dig into this. You got the deepest of deep dives on the Speaker of the House. Let's just start with some of the things. What surprised you the most going into this and coming out of it in terms of what you learned about Mike Johnson?
That's such a great question. In some ways, I think everything surprised me. What intrigued me about him, exactly as you were saying in your intro, was that, even as somebody who covers Congress, I didn't know much about this man at all. He was in a role called vice chair of the conference, which is ostensibly a leadership position, but it doesn't really matter much. It's a messaging position. So I always say he was virtually a backbencher to kind of get around that technicality.
Yes.
But I think what I quickly found to be quite interesting and in some ways surprising, though not really that surprising when you sit down and think about it. When you consider his colleagues like Steve Scalise or Tom Emmer, these were other people who ran to succeed Kevin McCarthy. Both of them have been in House leadership for quite some time. So in some ways, they had an infrastructure in place should they become Speaker just to hit the ground running. Mike Johnson had none of that. He only had what's called a personal office. So the staffers that, if you're a constituent of his, you're dealing with day to day, if you have, issues at home. So when he became Speaker, it's really tough to overstate the 180 his life took. So the kinds of adjustments that he was making that maybe his more seasoned colleagues wouldn't have to deal with were really hugely monumental for him. So suddenly he has Capitol Police outside of his house at all times, joining him anywhere he has to go. He's surprised to get calls from international reporters wanting to know about his family. I think it's important to emphasize how for him, this wasn't just a personal or professional transition, but just a hugely, personal undertaking as well, and something that his family has had to deal with too.
Yeah, I thought the way you covered just that, basically having 15 minutes to put together a major staff. Most people don't recognize how small the staffs are on the House side of the building over there. The Senate staffers are a little more in numbers, but those House staffs are so small and they are so personal. It is dealing with that constituent issues for the most part. And so I do think that was an amazing pivot for him to be able to do that and put together a team and move it forward. Give us a little sense. You dug into his background as well and some of the things that have shaped and influenced the way he's addressed the job and even some of the tough decisions he's made, even in the face of opposition within his own party over the last week.
I think one of the most important things to understand about Mike Johnson is that he is a child of the 80s. He's someone who grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana. So for your listeners, that's Northwest Louisiana. This is not kind of what you think of when you think of Bourbon Street, New Orleans.
Right.
This is closer to Texas culturally, East Texas. And for him, Ronald Reagan really was an idol. And he really admired from a young age how Ronald Reagan and Democratic House Speaker Tip O'Neill seemed to have, a great deal of respect for each other. They disagreed on policy and politics, but at the end of the day, kind of worked with each other with an implicit trust in the other's good faith, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he found that hugely formative in terms of forming his own political identity. So civility, I think, rather early in his political career became a bedrock of his own brand. And for him to transition to the speakership in a moment when civility, to put it lightly, is rather detached from the heart of the Republican Party and politics more broadly right now, I think this adjustment we've been talking about, because it's so ingrained in him and makes so much sense to him, what I noticed through my reporting is that, there was a lot of naivete, I think, that was motivating his approach to the job early on. I think, again, when something is so logical to you, you just sort of think, well, if I just sit down with people and explain that, working with each other with a baseline of respect is a good thing, then surely they will understand. But what he discovered very quickly is that the people that he was trying to work with a trust in their good faith were not doing the same with him. So I had one member of Congress tell me that was probably the biggest wake-up call for him, that, it's not just for a lot of these members. It's, a very selfish enterprise about their political brand, their social media brand, not necessarily working every day with the good of the country in mind. So really adjusting to that dynamic in that sense, I think, was kind of a shell shock for him.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that led him back. Obviously, he and his wife have a partnership that's very extraordinary in terms of the way they approach things, what they're willing to sacrifice individually and together in order to take on this role and take on this particular moment. What did you learn about that, and what does that tell you in terms of what we might expect moving forward from Speaker Johnson?
Well, I would say in terms of his partnership with his wife, they've been married for over 2 decades now. They met shortly after or right when he was on the cusp of graduating from law school at LSU. She was an elementary school teacher. And kind of in a continuation of what I was saying earlier, you come into a job like the speakership and you sort of realize how few people around you can actually trust to give advice with your best interests in mind. Everybody has an angle, obviously. And I think from my conversations with him, as well as his wife, she sat in on one of our interviews. What he was explaining to me is that it's so helpful to have someone with you at all times who you can go to for guidance, who only has your interests in mind. It's rare to have people like that around you in Washington. And so I think he really has leaned on her to an extraordinary degree, in a way that I certainly haven't encountered in the, political spouses that I've covered in my career.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And give us a sense in terms of how he is approaching some of these issues. Obviously, the way he navigated the aid packages, dividing those up into 3, much smaller, much more focused, kind of giving everyone the chance to vote for the ones they wanted, not for the ones they didn't like, as opposed to a fake fight and a false choice of just either or, all or nothing kind of things. What is it that you sense from him in terms of kind of the guiding principles of the job itself as he's come to understand it and actually live it now for about 6 months?
That's a great question. I would say for his first 5.5 months as speaker, like I said, I think he was really trying to achieve a consensus that just didn't exist on a lot of these issues, and try to get people to yes who never wanted to get to yes to begin with, right? So people like the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the conference. And, sort of encountering those growing pains that these people don't want to be part of the solution necessarily from the outset. But also I think for him, it was, when we think about the Ukraine aid packages that passed this past weekend, I think for him, it was really important to get to a place where he wasn't just trying to protect his job security anymore. And, once that, my understanding from his team is that once that consideration, he was able to put that to rest. He felt a lot freer just to do what he thought was right. And I should say, it did take him quite a few months to get to that position. That it was back in February that the Senate passed their own foreign aid package with aid for Ukraine, the Indo-Pacific, and Israel, and he just wouldn't bring it to the floor. That would have been an opportunity for Democrats to step in and give him the votes he needed, just as they did this past weekend. But he was unwilling to do that, like I said, because he was still sort of bent on achieving this consensus that finally he realized just didn't exist.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting thing. And I think he went in with this idea of building the relationships and getting to that consensus. And I think particularly with the former president weighing in on so many different things and it being not about relationships, but about transactions. I think that was a bit jarring for him from my observations. We had him on the show a few weeks ago with Congresswoman Malloy. And to me, it was he's figuring out those that you can have relationships with and those members on both sides of the aisle and in the White House that you're just dealing with one transaction and the next transaction will probably be totally different. Was that part of the learning curve for him? How do you see that?
I think it was absolutely part of the learning curve. I think maybe even more crucially, and, to expand a bit more on his origin story, there is, in terms of ideology, it doesn't get much more conservative than this man. I mean, there's a reason that when he became Speaker, Matt Gaetz immediately anointed him MAGA Mike. This is not somebody who, if you just look at his voting record, that any Freedom Caucus member could credibly call a squish or anything like that. He was never part of the Freedom Caucus, but Jim Jordan, one of the group's co-founders, was his mentor from day one when he got to the Hill. So philosophically, he's very aligned with that far right of the conference. And I think part of the adjustment for him was sort of realizing that didn't help him at all. I think he sort of thought that, well, these people that are upset with the decisions I'm making, people like Chip Roy or Marjorie Taylor Greene, if I can just remind them that we're on the same team, we have the same policy goals, then perhaps they'll extend me some more grace. That didn't happen. And so I think part of it is in some ways early on was a denial for him, of all the people who could have been most vocally opposed to his speakership. I don't think he ever envisioned it being people like Chip Roy, who was his own mentee in Congress and now is, the first to the microphone on the House floor to lambaste whatever it is he's just done.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. This is a fantastic piece at The Atlantic. Elena Calabre, staff writer at The Atlantic. Brilliant work, fantastic writing, and great insight into the Speaker of the House. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Again, great perspective there. And again, whether you love his politics or dislike his politics, there are so many lessons in there. It's worth just sitting down and doing the deep dive read because it's way beyond the headlines. And I promise you, you'll think again about what you think you know about the Speaker of the House. You'll learn something and maybe even a principle or two that you might be able to apply in your own world as well. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their second month free when they sign up and use promo code MONTHFREE by May 31st. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. Changing your oil with a full synthetic oil like Valvoline Advanced can help your engine get more miles.
Right now, you can get 5 quarts with an STP Extended Life oil filter for only $35.99.
Get started on your next job today with the parts you need when you need them at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
It rattled homes for miles.
A homeowner apparently called a friend and said basically, hey, I've got a bunch of old dynamite around, handed down through the family.
Evacuations and 2 explosions.
Crews responded and they said they found there was no safe way to remove it, so they had to detonate it this morning inside the home.
When you need to know or know more, come here.
I haven't seen that in the fine print on
Me
any
neither.
homeowner's insurance plan.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers. On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms. Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact Stephanie Palmer at KSL for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. Email spalmer@ksl.com. That's spalmer@ksl.com.
Put the equity in your home to work with a home equity line of credit and get 6.49% APR for the first 6 months. Learn more at cypresscu.com.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. You know, one of the things that we do very well in the United States of America is moments. We come together in moments of tragedy, big catastrophes, natural disasters. We're really good at that. We're less good at the forward movement and remembering. And we've seen so many of these moments of coming together. But we've seen far more where we just kind of keep going on and we forget the lessons or we miss the lessons in their entirety. And someone who never misses a moment or a message is Kelsey Dallas. Of course, great writer for Deseret.com, Deseret News. She has a master's degree in religion from Yale Divinity and covers a wide range of topics. One of the great thinkers and great writers we have around here. And Kelsey, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for those kind words, and thanks for having me.
I am so excited to talk about this because you've done something that I think we're just missing in the country, and you actually went back to a site of one of those tragic moments where the country did come together. You went back to Pittsburgh, to the synagogue there. First, remind us of the events that we should be remembering and learning from, and then start to share your experience of going back.
Yes, I went to the site of the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting that took place on October 27th, 2018. That was the deadliest attack on Jews in U.S. history. 11 men and women died and others were injured. There were actually 3 separate Jewish congregations affected who were sharing the same building. And when I was at the Religion News Association conference this past weekend, we were able to go visit the site where the main synagogue is still standing, but the site of the shooting, which was more of a community center and smaller chapel, has been torn down to make room for a very exciting new project that we could talk about more later. But really what I wanted to write about in my newsletter was what it felt like to be there, what it's like to see what hangs around the site today, which is copies of drawings that the community received from school children across the country back in 2018, messages like "you are so loved," "you matter," "move forward together," and just what it felt like to talk to the people who went through that tragedy and the lessons that they walked away with.
Yeah, and so describe some of that for us, some of those conversations that you had. I think, again, noting that it was the deadliest attack on the Jewish community. 11 people lost their lives, many others injured. And again, the country came together. There was a moment, I think, where everyone kind of focused their attention on that. And then, of course, we all started moving on to the next thing and the next thing after that. So give us a sense of the conversations. I loved the visual images there of those drawings of rebuild together and be happy and all of those. What else did you hear? What else did you sense walking around?
The folks that were directly affected, so it touched on their own congregation or their own loved ones may have passed away. they talked about how they had to work through the typical mourning process. They had to work through the trauma. And they also had to decide what to do with the national attention, international attention on them. And what they've sort of realized over the past 5.5 or so years is that these really dark moments are also an opportunity to remind people of the power of coming together, as you were speaking about. And so now their mission is to not just tell the story of tragedy, but also to tell of the joys that they had the opportunity to feel thanks to the community response, and to say, how can we build a community spirit that is with us always and not just in these dark moments. So their goal with the site is to build a community center, a center that educates people about anti-Semitism, but also a center of celebration where you could go to a community event and get to know your neighbors and just become more engaged, and so that we could support each other all the time and not just difficult times.
Yeah, so great. I love one of the lines that you used in terms of celebrating the kindness and compassion of the world, even as you call out evil. Those things don't have to be polar opposites. You can actually have an and conversation in celebrating that kindness and compassion, and you can still call out evil.
Yes, and they also talked quite a bit about how they want their loved ones that died that day to be known for more than just dying that day. So they've worked on a memorial that will sit next to the synagogue that will talk about how these 11 men and women lived their lives, the things they cared about, their investment in Pittsburgh's Jewish community. And that's an important reminder as well. That I've read a lot about. I think David Brooks writes about, where it's like developing your virtues throughout your life and not just focusing on what's on your resume, for example. Yeah. And so I just felt so inspired personally by this visit, but also felt like it was a message that civic leaders need to hear, religious leaders need to hear, anyone who's in a position of authority where they can focus on educating folks with an eye toward bringing people together, and not just educating folks so that they're like scared of the next terrible tragedy or memorize all the details of this particular shooting. Like, really, it's about how do you collect the wisdom and then move forward.
I love that. And it really is a reminder, as you wrote in your piece, of what's possible when we pull together instead of pulling apart. And I think it's also that principle that we actually honor best those who have gone before by living our lives with excellence today. And to me, this just feels like what is next, what happens next is what matters, that we can really celebrate those who lost their lives by living differently, coming together, and doing something together today is a wonderful message. And as you said, Kelsey, we need that in every civic corner and every political space on the planet, especially right here at home. Kelsey, thanks so much for joining us again. As always, great thinking, great writing. Thanks for pulling us into a compelling story that matters. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, that's Kelsey Dallas again from Deseret News, Deseret.com. Great piece there. And again, coming out of that tragedy of the Pittsburgh shooting there in that Jewish community, 11 lives lost, and now so many lives touched, blessed, strengthened, enlightened, with a bigger vision of what's possible when we pull together. We can't just have moments in times that are bad. We have to have the vision and foresight to take action to create what's next. We'll be right back.
1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Tammy Kikuchi. KSL's top local story this hour. UDOT has more than 200 projects on its to-do list this summer. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has more on which projects could temporarily slow you down.
UDOT spokesperson John Gleason tells me some of the projects people should especially plan around include their work to turn 134th, 98th, and 47th south, as well as 2700 west along Bangerter Highway into freeway-style interchanges. He also noted the 5600 south project in Roy. You've also got crews trying to build a new section of road to connect Mountain View Corridor in Salt Lake County to here at the Utah County portion.
You can find info on those and other projects on KSLNewsRadio.com. A new hunting law goes into place next week. Faith Jolly with the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources says it simplifies the current law where hunters have to wear 400 square inches of orange.
Wearing an orange hat,
with an orange shirt or wearing an orange jacket or an orange coat or a vest or sweater. Just basically it's kind of designating it so it's simpler than trying to figure out and do the math of how much is 400 square inches.
Hikers, bikers, campers, and other recreators will also be required to check if the area they are in is a wildlife management area. If it is, they will also need to wear orange. The division advises checking their website before heading out for summer plans. Your money at this moment, all the markets appear to be struggling a bit. We'll have a look at the Dow, which is down 322 points right now. The S&P is down 16, and the NASDAQ is down 75. A lot of rain in some parts of the valley right now. We'll have a look at weather and traffic together. KSL News Time, 1:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. You know, changing your oil with a full synthetic oil like Valvoline Advanced can help your engine get more miles.
Right now, you can get 5 quarts with an STP Extended Life Oil Filter for only $35.99.
Get started on your next job today with the parts you need when you need them at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-275-1728. That's 800-275-1728.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I owed the IRS a lot of money.
Louie was in deep trouble.
We're going to take your house, put a lien on your bank account, garnish your pay. They don't care. They're going to take your paycheck.
Louie found out about Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima Tax, they helped me. They calmed me down. They made me feel comfortable, and I trust them.
Louie has a lot to be thankful for.
I don't owe the IRS anymore, and I'm able to live a comfortable life, a lot better life. It was because of Optima Tax.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation. Take it from Louie.
If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give Optima Tax a call. They can help you.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Springtime in Utah, and if you hate to paint, do what your neighbor Judy did. She called Rhino Shield.
After having the house painted with kind of usual house paint, I was seeing cracks appearing about every 3 years and just wasn't very satisfied with that.
Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
I can't speak highly enough about the Rhino Shield crew. They also were great at working with me to get the exact right color because I was very particular.
Utah, you too can have the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
I would not hesitate to call Rhino Shield, and I am just thrilled to recommend Rhino Shield to my friends and neighbors and family.
This offer is limited. Call 435-246-4466, 435-246-4466, or rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We still have leftover delays from the rain that came through on southbound I-15 between 53rd South into Sandy. And then north and southbound I-15 between Bangerter Highway and SR-92 also seeing some rain slowing. Westbound I-215 southbound, an accident blocking a right lane near State Street and causing delays. The best kept secret is this is the pass. It's a pass for fun for everyone. Now through April 30th, save $20 off every annual pass level. 362 days of fun. Visit thisisthepass.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Scattered showers and thunderstorms pop up this afternoon. A more dynamic storm moves in tomorrow, bringing rain and mountain snows. Highs tomorrow topping out in the 50s. Best chances of rain Friday into Saturday morning, but a warm up is in store for next week. Right now, it is 61 degrees and mostly cloudy in downtown Salt Lake City. I'm Tammy Kikuchi from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, where Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As we continue to march our way through the 2024 election cycle, of course, a lot of attention on the presidential politics of it all, which will culminate in the first Tuesday of November. We also have some important big races here in the state of Utah, which will put new people in a variety of positions, including the role of Attorney General. One of those who is running to fill that office is Derek Brown, and he joins us live on the line. Derek, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Boyd. Appreciate you having me.
So you've been out and about with delegates, doing cottage meetings, having all kinds of gatherings, making your case there. And that's always an interesting experience to be out amongst voters, potential voters, delegates. Tell me something that you have learned in that process, and maybe something that has even surprised you as you've been going through this race for the Attorney General spot.
Well, I mean, I've learned that there is a lot of angst out there and a lot of people really interested in what takes place in even the local races here in Utah. But I've enjoyed the fact that so many people are engaged, and we have 4,000 Republican delegates. And I've been at events where they're literally taking notes as I'm speaking, which means that they're comparing and contrasting the candidates and really doing their job. And so anyway, I've been pleasantly surprised, and quite frankly, Boyd, it's a little unnerving when someone's taking notes when you're speaking, but that's a good thing, right? I mean, I like the fact that there is that level of engagement.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing, and it is always refreshing to see how serious people take it and leaning into that process of being an informed voter. I think we all can take some lessons there as well. So give us a little bit of the why story for you in choosing to take on this particular race at this particular time.
Well, I think for me, this is a moment in time it's an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to give back. I've always believed that you take the George Washington model, you get in, you serve, you step up, and then you step out. And I've always felt very strongly about that model. I did that in the House of Representatives. I was in the State House. I served for a few years. I had an opportunity to help Senator Lee out, so I stepped out. Same thing with the state party. I was the GOP state chair for a couple of years, and when it was over, I had people saying, "Hey, go do another round. You know, this one will be easier, and it'll be more of one person called it a victory lap because all the hard stuff had been done." And I said, you know what? Service isn't about victory laps. It's about getting stuff done and then getting back to the private sector. And I feel like we are at a critical point in time as a state and as a country, particularly as it involves the federal government and the level of just overreach into every aspect of our life. And this is an issue I've been working on for 20 plus years, ever since, I practiced law with Senator Lee, 20 plus years ago in Washington. It's an issue that I care about, I've been working on. And so I feel like this is a moment where I can make a difference. I can serve and do what I've done before, step up, serve, and then step out.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I'm going to get my disclaimer in here that about 8 years ago, maybe a little more than 8 years ago, I was part of a hiring process that took you out of that private sector and put you in a Senate office as a deputy chief of staff. And a lot of people look at those kinds of transitions and they kind of wonder what's going on there. And often those come at a cost. I know that your wife Emily has had similar things that my wife Debbie has had when you come home and say, "Hey, we've got a new opportunity," and she says, "How much is it going to cost us? what kind of pay cut are we going to take to do this?" But you've had those kind of moments where you've said, "Okay, I've got this great offer in hand, but I think I have an opportunity to make a difference and not just a dollar." Describe that for us.
Well, it is. I mean, it is a trade-off. I mean, public service is called that for a reason, and we've joked that every time I've had an opportunity to to do really well financially that I've blown it by going into public service. But, that's, when you feel that gentle nudge to serve, I think you answer that call. And I've had a lot of people that have said to me, one of these days I want to run for office. What should I do now? And I said, well, be part of your community. Serve where you can. Learn a skill. Be involved. And I promise the moment will come. And I've had so many friends who've had a moment, whether it's the Planning Commission or the State House of Representatives or something in their community. I mean, when that moment comes and you get that, the nudge to serve, that's the time. And so I encourage everyone to look for those opportunities, because that's really what this is about. Politics should not be a profession. It should be, brief periods of time where you get in, you use your talents and abilities to help those around you, and then you transition to doing, going back to doing what you were doing before.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of that model, to get in, to make a difference, to get back out, because we do need it in community. And then when you're in community, that tap on the shoulder moment comes, and you're ready, you're prepared, you can do that for a season, and then you move on to the next thing. Well, Derek, as we close out, I'm going to close with the question I ask every single person running for office. I've asked people running for president of the United States, to local mayors, county commissioners, everybody in between. And you have experienced the rough and tumble of politics. It's hard. It's exhausting. It's exasperating. It's hard on families. It's hard on profession. It's hard on everything. And so the question is, what makes all of this worthwhile for you, even if you get to the end of the day and you don't become the next Attorney General?
That's a great question. For me, this has been an opportunity to raise awareness and let people know that we have this critical, crucial moment in time where I think we are positioned to make an impact as a state and as a country as it relates to federal overreach and so many of these conservative issues that I care about. And if in the end the voters choose someone else, what will make it worthwhile for me is if the person they chose is someone who is qualified, aware of, and able to really address those issues, because we really are at a critical turning point in this country right now. And so if that's where this ends up, if that's where this leads it, and if the voters choose someone else, fantastic. As long as we're able to address some of the biggest issues that we are facing as a state, and we're well positioned to do that. So that's my hope. That's what would make it all worthwhile for me.
All right. Derek Brown running for the Attorney General's office here in the state of Utah. Big convention coming up on Saturday, of course, and then on to the June 25th primary. We'll continue to keep our eye on all of those things. Derek, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Boyd. Appreciate it.
All right. Again, that's Derek Brown running for Attorney General here in the state of Utah. And KSL News Radio has you covered with everything you're going to need rolling, not just into this weekend where you have both the Democrats and the Republicans having their conventions, and then those will pivot and move on to the June 25th primary. And so a lot going on, and I love the fact that we can get in and become a little more educated, understand just a little bit better what are the core issues. I love to look at how people think, what makes them tick, because that often will tell you how they'll vote, how they'll lead, or how they will govern. But you can't get that from bumper stickers or just sailing across and just looking at the headlines. And again, big thanks to Derek Brown. We're going to go ahead and step aside for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to look at the Utah Senate race for the U.S. Senate, and we'll have Brent Hatch joining us on the line coming up next on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Tonight on KSL.
That's a huge increase.
A lot of Utahns are getting sticker shock.
I called them up to ask them what was going on.
By the surging cost of insurance. News specialist Daniel Woodruff uncovers the painful truth.
I've been in the business 40 years and I've never seen this hard of a market.
And reveals the simple things you can do to drive the cost down.
Definitely paid off.
Surging insurance, an unaffordable Utah report. Tonight on KSL 5 News at 10.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit npsstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. npsstore.com.
Higher taxes, soaring inflation, record low interest rates, and the skyrocketing cost of healthcare. The list goes on. Retiring successfully today is a lot more complicated than ever before. Learn how you can tackle the biggest challenges that you'll face in retirement today. Don't miss a special edition of Retirement Solutions Radio. It's this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL News Radio 1027.
Sign up for KSL text alerts and you could win cash. Text the word cash to 57500 for a chance to win $250. That's cash to 57500. Plus, you'll get breaking news and traffic updates right to your phone. Want to win more prizes? Text contest to 57500. Jazz fans, text the word jazz for breaking Utah Jazz news. And Cougar fans, text BYU to 57500 for the latest on the Cougars. Message and data rates may apply. For an alternate entry method and complete contest rules, go to KSLNewsRadio.com.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. So nice to have the feel of spring in the air. May will soon be with us, and that means graduations, it's the wedding season, birthdays, all kinds of things to celebrate, including the big one, and that's Mother's Day. When you're planning a special event or any event that you want to feel very, very good and special about, it's time to call and make the reservations at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And we have two locations, Hotel Park City and downtown Salt Lake City. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse simply has it all. The ambiance, the servers are the very best. But let's talk about the food. Unbelievable quality. The best meal you have ever had awaits you at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And always, always, always save room for dessert. Hotel Park City, and, of course, downtown Salt Lake City. Whatever the special occasion, or no special occasion at all, go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Progressive presents 10 things on a plumber's to-do list that are harder than getting a small business insurance quote. Waking up for 5 a.m. plumbing disasters, finding out why water is pouring from the ceiling, replacing a pipe in a home from the 1800s, then dealing with invoices or your awkward apprentice or that really weird smell, and then there's breathing and eating and, of course, clogs. But the easiest thing on any small business owner's to-do list? Seeing if you could save on the business insurance that's right for you. Get a quote in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
Angie's List is now Angie, and we've heard a lot of theories about why.
I thought it was an eco move. Fewer words, less paper.
No, it was so you could say it faster.
No, it's to be more iconic.
Must be a tech thing.
But those aren't quite right. It's because now you can compare upfront prices, book a service instantly, and even get your project handled from start to finish.
Sounds easy.
It is, and it makes us so much more than just a list. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
Get some green when you go green with Cypress Credit Union. From now through the end of May, when you open a Dream checking account with direct deposit and e-statements, we'll give you $100 and donate $50 to Tree Utah's community tree planting program. To open your account or for more information, visit us today at cypresscu.com.
Cypress Credit Union. Your future is our future.
Federally insured by NCUA.
Set the hook on savings with the Shields Fishing Sale event now through April 28th, in-store and online. Peer into the depths with electronics from Garmin and Lowrance. Protect yourself from the sun with clothing from Hook and Sims. And rig your boat with a trolling motor from Minn Kota. Our passionate Shields fishing experts are ready to prepare you for your next fishing adventure. Buy with confidence, knowing you have everything you need for that next hook set at Shields and Shields.com.
People decide to lose weight for all different kinds of reasons. I mean, I interviewed someone who told me that 30% of all Utahns are pre-diabetic. Maybe it's your health, or maybe it's the fact that summer's going to be here any day and you got a wedding this summer and you just want to feel more confident in your dress as the mother of the bride or the father of the bride.
And you know that's what's happening in my life this summer with my daughter, who lost 42 pounds on this great program. You talk about feeling confident. If you're the bride, that's your day.
People do it for all different reasons, like Jim.
I have the family history of family members being obese, and I did not want that. And I figured now would be a good time that I could take control of something.
So whatever the reason is for you, today is the day to start the SOTA weight loss program.
Yeah, it's nice to know that message is getting out. And really, if people see you as good as you look today, they will want to get in on the program too. It is SOTA Weight Loss. Go to SOTAweightloss.com, which stands for
State of the Art.
It is State of the
Art.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tammy Kikuchi. First, former President Bush is coming to town next week. Second, there probably won't be insurance to cover damage when dynamite was exploded in Holiday. And third, many local football players hope their names will be called starting tonight with the NFL Draft. Right now, 61 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson as we continue our coverage on the races that will impact the state and the nation here in the Beehive State and beyond. Of course, we continue to keep our eye on the United States Senate race. One of those candidates vying for that spot is Brent Hatch, and he joins us live on the line. And Brent, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Boyd. I'm glad you had me on.
So give us a little sense here. Obviously, you have been in, around, and through the political space and public service, obviously with your father's time there in our nation's capital. Give us a sense of what was the moment that made you decide, I need to get into this race now?
Well, it's pretty much the same thing delegates have said to me as we've gone up and down the states. They said, we've got a lot of people who are, giving conservative talking points, but we need somebody with experience. And I've been a practicing lawyer here for 30 years, but earlier in my career, I worked for the conservative Justice Judge Robert Bork. I worked in the Reagan administration, both as the youngest general counsel in the history of the government, but also in the Justice Department. And I was the first Utahn to work in the White House as Associate White House Counsel. And as you mentioned, I'm also the oldest son of the late Senator Orrin Hatch, and had a front row seat to what he did and to be effective representing our great state in Washington. And so the delegates have liked the fact that with all the experience I have, that I'm more than just talking points. I actually have the experience and qualities to actually get something done.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about that time as associate counsel to the president there in the White House under George H.W. Bush. We actually had one of his chief of staffs on who's had a great book talking about character matters and some of those lessons. They said that George H.W. Bush never gave advice, he lived advice. As you saw that in that role, what did you learn, and how has that helped shape what you would hope to be as a United States Senator?
Well, both presidents I worked for, Presidents Reagan and Bush, were unbelievable conservatives, and the most defining characteristic that they were dignified. Everything about them just exuded confidence, strength, and that they cared about people. And I learned a lot from that, because being a conservative isn't just yelling and screaming; it's actually getting things done.
Yeah, I think that sharpening more pencils than knives, I think, is something that the conservative movement's got to get back to in terms of kind of a governing philosophy. As you look at the way things are shaping up in the country, obviously there's a lot of shouting going on in the country, including what's happening on college campuses today. How do you see that? What's the cause of that? And what's the role of a United States Senator in helping shape the kinds of conversations we have about the big issues of our time?
Well, one of the things I've been talking to delegates about is under our constitutional system, the federal government's supposed to be limited, and most issues are supposed to be dealt with at the state level. We've gotten to a position where so many people want everything to be a federal issue that every issue becomes the Super Bowl. Instead of letting our states be laboratories of democracy and letting us, compete for ideas, have them handled at the local and state levels, where we're more likely to get agreements in the state of Utah among our citizens than having to fight it out with Californians and New Yorkers. And so, getting back to limited government and constitutional principles, I think is important. That'll get rid of some of the divisiveness and partisanship we have in government now.
Yeah. And so as you've been having these conversations with delegates, with potential voters out there, I always like to ask, has anything surprised you as you've crisscrossed the state, really listening and finding out what's on their minds?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. One of the things that my father did very well is he actually, he went up and down the state. There's almost not a single government official that didn't meet with them or he didn't have some impact on their lives. And going up and down the state, most of them have been telling me that's really lacked with the representatives that we've had over the last several years. So they don't feel like they're being listened to, their problems aren't being resolved, and they'd like to get back to good conservative leadership that also cares about them, especially in rural Utah.
Yeah, and so final question for you, and this is one I've asked everybody from presidential candidates to mayors, city council, everybody in between. I think it's the important question, and that is, what makes all of this worth it? You've seen enough of the rough and tumble of what politics is and can be, how brutal it can be. What makes all of that worth it, even if in the end you don't get the result you want?
Well, I learned it very early in my career working on Judge Bork's nomination to the Supreme Court that politics could be a blood sport and you had to have a thick skin. But one of the things I learned also was to continue to fight, continue to make a difference. For 38 years, I've worked both in the Justice Department and the White House and as a private citizen and as a board of directors member of the Federalist Society to get conservative justices on the Supreme Court. And I've worked personally in almost every one of those. And under President Trump, we got him to put 3 conservatives on the Supreme Court. Now we have a 6-3 majority, and we're starting to see the effect of that. And that will last beyond several presidencies. And I think that was very fulfilling to me. It also, I think, is a good sign to the delegates and the people of the state that I've been a strong conservative my entire life, my entire career. I haven't wavered. And nobody's done anything close to having the impact as changing the Supreme Court has had.
Yeah, no question about that. Great insight. Brent Hatch, you're running for the slot for the United States Senate. We appreciate you joining us on the line. Good luck down the home stretch and over the weekend at the convention. And I'm sure we will be talking to you as things roll along. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I hope the delegates will vote Hatch at the convention.
All right, that's Brent Hatch. And again, coming up this weekend, we'll have coverage for you here on KSL News Radio. Both the Republicans and the Democrats will have their nominating conventions over the weekend. Those will be fascinating to watch how those play out. A lot of those will result in primaries that, of course, will take place June the 25th when those primary days are held. But there's a lot to watch. There's a lot of things that can happen. And as is always the case in politics, 24 to 48 hours is a lifetime or 2 or 3 when it comes to politics. So I'm very interested to see how things continue to play out, what the conversations continue to be. There's always a little bit of a flurry, especially as it relates to these conventions for both political parties, that in the last hours before those conventions, there's usually some shenanigans by someone who's a little overambitious or a little overanxious or really trying to sway them in a particular way. And so I always caution people, this applies leading up to a primary, leading up to a general election, leading up to a convention. If it sounds a little wild, it probably is. If it sounds a little crazy, it's probably not reality. And so we have to dismiss and make sure we don't reward the bad behavior of some who are so desperate for power that they'll do anything to get it. That's the last person you want to actually have representing you in the end. So we appreciate those candidates that are staying on their message and their vision, worrying less about their opponents, less about the attacks, and much more about what are their principles, what policies are they going to put forward, what's their vision for what's next. That's what actually matters. All right, that rounds out hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but do not go anywhere. We got a big hour number 2 coming up for you. We're going to kick it off with some radical empathy of Passover. You don't want to miss it. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Tammy Kikuchi. KSL's top story this hour, the former U.S. president is coming to speak in Salt Lake City. KSL News Radio's Brent Johnson has more.
America's 43rd President George W. Bush will speak as the special guest at the Zions Bank Crossroads of the World International Trade Summit on May 23rd at the Grand America Hotel in Salt Lake. Bush will speak alongside other global experts, but if you're hoping to get a ticket, the event is invitation only. Britt Johnson, KSL News Radio.
Home insurance likely won't cover the house and holiday that state officers blew up because of the ancient dynamite they found in the basement. The Utah Department of Insurance says this would fall under hazardous materials damage that is not usually covered by home insurance plans. Lots of local football players will be on pins and needles for 3 days. The NFL draft commences tonight. One of the University of Utah's top prospects is Sione Vaki.
We don't know what he's going to play in the NFL. He's one of the most intriguing players in the draft because he can play both sides of the ball. Which team out there wants to play running back, which team wants him to play safety, and which one will take him first.
KSL TV's Jeremiah Jensen says Cole Bishop will probably be Utah's first draft pick, but not until the second round. Other Ute hopefuls include Jonah Ellis and Keaton Bills. For BYU, Kingsley Suamataia and Keaton Slovis are hoping to hear their names called. There will be up to 7 rounds, which will wrap up on Saturday. Other national stories following on KSL News Radio. The Dow has been struggling all day. The Dow is down 375 points right now. The S&P is down 23 points, and NASDAQ is down 100 points. It's a little sloppy and wet out there. We'll have a look at weather and traffic next. KSL News Time is 2:01.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
For over 10 years, IVC has been holding an event to celebrate women. Mark your calendar for Saturday morning, May 4th, to attend IVC's annual Mother's Day event, where you'll receive a complimentary assessment, which includes an ultrasound exam and consultation with one of IVC's board-certified physicians. If you're experiencing any pelvic or leg achiness, heaviness, or pain, this event is a perfect opportunity to get some answers and some relief. Give yourself the attention you deserve. Pelvic congestion syndrome, or pelvic venous congestion, is an important but often overlooked cause of chronic pelvic pain. And chronic leg achiness and pain are often symptoms of varicose veins. Don't worry anymore. The physicians at IVC can help. IVC has been named the best vein center in Utah Valley for over 10 years in a row. Don't delay. Space is limited. Go to ivein.com or call 801-379-6700. IVC. Life starts when the pain stops.
Looking for a secure retirement plan without market risk? Look no further. Lyle Boss, president of Boss Financial, specializes in no market risk retirement strategies with guarantees of principal, guaranteed growth, and lifelong income. Join Lyle right here each Saturday and Sunday for his Safe Money radio show, and call him now at 855-355-SAFE for your complimentary customized Safe Money information kit and Safe Money book. Nothing but upside here at 855-355-SAFE.
Beat the spring cleaning rush with big savings and priority booking by calling our heroes at ZeroRes. Think about the dust, dander, and bacteria living and breeding in your carpet, upholstery, air ducts, and more with nowhere to go. Did you know as many as 1 in 5 Americans suffer from allergies caused by particles frequently found in the air inside most homes? Not only is indoor air quality an issue year-round, but especially now that allergens such as pollen are coming out of hibernation, ready to invade your home. If you or anyone in your family suffer from allergies or asthma, or you just want cleaner, healthier air, ZeroRes can help. Check out the 3,300 raving customer reviews online with a 4.8 Google rating. Right now, when you call ZeroRes, get one room ZeroResify from Salt Lake's #1 carpet cleaner starting at just $25 with a 4-room minimum to get that true spring cleaning feel. Call ZeroRes right now, 801-288-9376, or go online to ZeroRes.com and say you want the KSL special, ZeroRes. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right right way to clean.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Some leftover rain delays southbound I-15, scattered from Murray to Draper. But it's West Jordan where we have a nasty crash that is affecting traffic eastbound and northbound. Bangor Highway at 90th South, you will see some lanes blocked. If this is your normal route, you may want to consider an alternate. Lagoon is looking for ride maintenance technicians. Lagoon offers excellent mechanical training programs with amazing career opportunities. Ride maintenance technician position is full-time and year-round. Details, visit lagoonpark.com/jobs. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Scattered showers and thunderstorms are possible this afternoon. You've probably seen them. More rain and mountain snow are expected tomorrow. Highs today, 68, which we already hit, and 50s Friday and Saturday. Right now, 57 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. I'm Tammy Kikuchi from KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The holiday of Passover is currently being celebrated by Jewish people around the world, and most of us can rattle off the headline of all of that it's about remembrance of their exodus from Egypt. But what if we need to think again about what we think we know about Passover? And what if beyond the headline, there's actually a radical message in Passover that's more vital now than ever before? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We began on Monday of this week. We had a great conversation with Rabbi Brad Hirschfield from New York about some of the things that are underneath the headlines of Passover. We want to continue that conversation with just a brilliant piece in the New York Times that is actually titled Passover's Radical Message is More Vital Than Ever. And Shai Held from the Hayter Institute as the president and dean, which he co-founded. He's also the author of Judaism is About Love. And looking forward to this conversation. And Shai, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with this radical message. Most people understand the core message of, or the baseline message, I would say, in terms of Passover and history. But help us get beyond that.
Well, one of the most interesting aspects, I think, of the Exodus in the Hebrew Bible is the idea that it has a radical ethical, political message. And that is that because we were strangers in the land of Egypt, we were vulnerable outsiders, we take upon ourselves a kind of special sensitivity to those who are vulnerable in the societies we find ourselves in. That's called loving the stranger. And I think it's actually quite radical because it's possible to say, you know, we were oppressed. No one helped us, so we don't owe anybody anything. But instead, the Bible encourages the Jewish people and all of its readers to say, we were oppressed, no one helped us, therefore we will never turn our back on those who are oppressed.
I love that. There's so many lessons just in that piece alone in terms of, one, the earned empathy, of course, but then also that ability to talk with authenticity. About the stranger, about those that we disagree with, about those that maybe have a different way of thinking, believing, praying, worshiping, or living. And so how do we start to apply that? How do we start to look at that, especially in the context of some of the bigger challenges we have in the world today?
Well, you know, the first meaning of stranger in the Bible, which, you know, in older translations, the Hebrew word ger was translated as sojourner. the meaning of stranger, I mean, its primary meaning, we start there at least, is someone who is not part of the kin group and therefore is vulnerable to being exploited by those with much more power than they. So the first piece of this is a kind of sensitivity to people who are vulnerable and subject to abuse and exploitation. And we could have all kinds of conversations about who those people are in any given society at any given time. But there is this kind of clear thrust of those who are vulnerable are your responsibility. That is of a piece with the Bible's idea that God loves widows and orphans, right? That is the paradigmatic vulnerable people in a society become the responsibility of God's people. So, but in general, to your question more directly, I think there's a kind of project of insistently seeing the humanity of those we might be tempted to dehumanize.
Yeah, that fellow. Oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, go ahead.
I was say that seeing that fellow traveler, that fellow sojourner, or those who may be apart but should be treated as if they are within, I think is such an important part of that. And there was one piece that you had in your piece in the New York Times that talks about suffering in particular, and that on one hand it can teach us that love, that earned empathy, but we also have to be careful, because if we're not careful, then we tend to be led towards apathy and even indifference. Just unpack that for us.
Yeah, I would say apathy, indifference, and sometimes even cruelty. I'll give you an example of this. When I was starting out as a rabbi in the late 90s, I was living in Boston, and it was right when the archdiocese, the Catholic Archdiocese of Boston, was unraveling because of all of the sexual abuse scandals. And the thing that I was most struck by as a rabbi, just kind of following these stories, is how many of the victimizers had been victims themselves as kids, right? How many people who had become grotesque abusers had themselves been abused. And so that really brought home for me the reality that this takes a lot of work. Letting your suffering teach you love as opposed to hate or even just entitlement takes work. You have to know the ways that you've been wounded and the ways that you've been hurt. And you have to work on really cultivating love and empathy. And it's that revolution in empathy that I'm trying to call for.
Yeah, and that is radical. And I love that. I also love that you point out that this kind of work, to live up to that kind of radical idea, is both individual and communal. Help us understand that.
Right. Well, it's interesting because the Bible seems to be speaking both to individuals. Sometimes when it articulates this mandate, it articulates it in the singular, right? You must love the stranger, you singular. And then sometimes it articulates in the plural. You the group, must love the stranger. So I find that really kind of suggestive, because it suggests that on the one hand, this is a big societal question. How do we build a society that welcomes the outsider? But it's also a deeply personal question, a kind of a place where spirituality and ethics meet. How do I, as an individual, respond to seeing people who are vulnerable in my world? How awake am I to their suffering? How responsive am I to their needs? I think that's really, really fundamental.
Yeah, no question. And finally, we always like to get to the therefore what question. As people read your piece in the New York Times, as they think about and hear different things about Passover or experience Passover during this week, what is it that you hope we think different, or what do you hope we do different as a result?
Well, I would say two things on very different levels. One is that we work on the kind of practice of noticing people who tend to be invisible to us, whether it's the person at our synagogue or church that no one says hello to, whether it's, the homeless person who we treat as if they're not there, right? To simply start seeing, insisting on seeing those whom society renders invisible. And then I would say on a much larger scale, so many of the world's most painful conflicts, including the one in Palestine and Israel, ultimately, if we're ever going to find our way out of those conflicts, it's going to be through people being willing to show the courage to hear one another's stories and see one another's pain. So although it seems so far away so much of the time, empathy really is obviously, I think, core to any future answers and solutions.
Such important stuff. It is the radical empathy of Passover, and I just want to reinforce what we have just heard, that it is the courage to hear one another's stories, to feel where they are coming from, is the beginning of change and transformation individually and as a society, and recognizing that when we link arms, we move this forward together in a very, very different way. Rabbi Shai Held, president and dean of the Hayter Institute, which he co-founded, also the author of Judaism is About Love. And thank you so much for making time for us during this Passover week. You've given us a lot to think about and a lot to do about to make things just a little bit better. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, it's Rabbi Shai Held, president and dean of the Hayter Institute. And I had not thought about empathy as something radical. The radical empathy of Passover. We've learned some important things this week in terms of how we can apply things that happened thousands of years ago to some very real, very acute, very specific problems in our world today. But it does start with some radical empathy. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and it is a regular occurrence. I'll have someone approach me. I'll have a friend call me, and they'll say, okay, let's talk about Connecticut. And I tell them about the experience Dee and I have had with 2 different systems in 2 different homes. And simply, Connecticut is the best. Now, I love to give these little science experiments occasionally. For example, now if your back can handle this, lift a 40-pound bag of salt just about to the height of your knees. Now lift the same bag to your chest 3 times in a row. Lifting 40 pounds to your knees once is easier than lifting 40 pounds to your chest 3 times, right? Well, you just demonstrated a major Connecticut soft water advantage. It is so much more efficient than anything else out on the market today. 2/3 less salt consumed in a Connecticut system. So I'd urge you to check out Connecticut, just as I advise my friends and acquaintances. The number to call is 801-576-8600 or go to softwaterutah.com.
Before you hit the road, hit the KSL preset.
Going to work and back home?
Or running errands around town.
We tell you which roads will slow you down
and how to avoid them.
With traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, KSL is a welcome backseat driver.
I'm Ricky Meese.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth.
We have you covered
on KSL News Radio.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their 2nd month free when they sign up and use promo code MONTHFREE by May 31st. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
We're recording this Progressive commercial on a real boat to let people know that when you bundle your home, boat, and other vehicles...
What was that, Flo?
Progressive saves you money, Jamie!
Why are we doing this on a boat?
We were going for authenticity!
We're going to the city?
Authenticity!
You mean Atlantic City? But we're not in the Atlantic! Are we?
Bundle your home and other vehicles with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Take a moment to listen. Really listen. You can hear the world around you, but can you hear clearly? If not, turn a new page in your life. Turn to My Hearing Centers. Research shows good hearing stimulates your brain, which reduces memory loss and helps maintain a higher quality of life. If you're dealing with hearing loss, you owe it to yourself to call My Hearing Centers and schedule a free consultation. 801-701-1629. 801-701-1629 with locations from Ogden to St. George. My Hearing Centers, changing lives through better hearing.
Trail mix, beef jerky, mixing all the soda flavors at the gas station soda machine. Snacks are better on the road. The gas is better when it's top tier. And the pit stop is better when there's a dinosaur there. Love the filler moments at a Sinclair gas station near you with DinoCare, our top tier gasoline. Some sweet and salty snacks for the commute and a big green dino for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com. Sinclair, fill up your life.
up to a 30% upfront bonus and 12% per year guaranteed growth for retirement. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and these are the highest guarantees with annuities I have seen in my life. When interest rates are this high, there are silver linings, and annuity guarantees are one of them. Up to a 30% bonus upfront for retirement income. On $100,000, that's up to $42,000 guaranteed in the first year. And it's because of the economy and its high interest rates. Don't let anyone, especially another financial advisor, tell you it's not true. Up to 30% upfront just for opening an account and up to 12% per year guaranteed income growth. Don't miss out. This won't last forever. If you have an old 401k, get up to 30% upfront and 12% guaranteed growth for income today.
Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
In a world where ugly siding, leaky gutters, and inefficient windows are sapping homeowners of their will to live, one company must save us all. This year, join RGS Exteriors as it embarks on a mission to eliminate outdated home exteriors, one Utah home at a time. Every plank of old, ugly siding must be replaced. Every leaky gutter must be eradicated. Every inefficient, energy-sapping window must be vanquished once and for all. Begin your epic remodeling quest by calling RGS Exteriors for a free estimate. Discover how a heroic team of experts will save your siding, gutters, or windows for a fair, no-nonsense price. Call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or journey online to rgsexteriors.com. RGS Exteriors, coming soon to a home near you.
79 missionaries trapped and penniless inside Germany borders with war days away. From director T.C. Christensen comes Escape from Germany in theaters now. Tickets at escapefromgermany.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tammy Kikuchi. First, Highway Patrol dealt with a double DUI this morning. Second, the Republican State Convention is this weekend in Salt Lake City. And third, a cat is back home after taking a trip in an Amazon box. Right now, it's 57 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Public service is always an interesting path. And, of course, as we march our way through the 2024 election cycle, we see the rough and tumble of it. We see the ways it can often be so exhausting and exasperating, at times infuriatingly unfair. And it's all part of public service, and that's exactly what it is, public service. And it's not for everyone. It takes someone who has some thick skin and has a real clear vision of what matters and what principles they're going to live by, what they're going to stand up for, where they're going to yield and negotiate and get to compromise, and the things that are the non-negotiables. And we often think about that at a high level, as voters, as we cast votes, but sometimes we don't watch what happens afterwards. And that's the important part. It's the hard work and heavy lifting stuff that really makes public service public service. It's often thankless. It's often late nights, early mornings, and all kinds of stressors in between. But from time to time, it's important that we step back and we stop and we recognize those who have had influence, who've made a difference, who've left a legacy of service, and who continue to make a difference in our community and in our country. And we're really pleased to have back on the program Matt Sangren, of course, is the executive director of the Orrin Hatch Foundation. And Matt, welcome back to the show.
And Boyd, it's good to be with you. Just hearing your introduction, you sound kind of like a recovering hardened Senate staffer. It's always good to be with you. One of the reasons why I enjoy coming on your show, we both can commiserate and trade notes on, our wounds from the Hill. So it's good to be with you.
That's right. There's plenty of scar tissue to go around, and but we should celebrate scar tissue. It's how things actually get done. And it is often those staffers that make all the things happen and move along. I was just mentioning not too long ago that we had George H.W. Bush, someone who served as his chief of staff for longer, who just came out with a new book, Character Matters. And I loved this whole thing that she kept saying, he never gave advice, but he always lived advice. And that's really, I think, some of the work that you're doing at the Orrin Hatch Foundation, including we get to break some news here today. Your Titan of Public Service Award is coming back around, and we know who it is now, or we're about to know who it is.
Right. Well, we're about to announce, as you might recall, last year we began this award, the Titan of Public Service Award. We kicked it off pretty high bar with Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell and his wife, Secretary Elaine Chao, two-time secretary, cabinet secretary, and we honored them last August of 2023. But this year, we're continuing our stride, and we're pleased to announce that this year's award recipient is Senator John Thune of South Dakota. Now, for those who may not know Senator Thune, he serves as a Senate Republican whip. Now, that might sound a little like an inside Beltway term, but it's the second most senior member of the Republican leadership team. It's a big deal. And he actually, to add a little more to him and his heft, he just recently announced his candidacy to run for Senate Republican leader this November. So we're just thrilled to bring him to Salt Lake City. He will be coming on Wednesday, August 14th. We'll be holding the event, the gala, at the Grand America Hotel in Salt Lake City, right downtown. It'll be a wonderful event.
That is great. And last year's event was really extraordinary and a really candid conversation, I thought, with Leader McConnell and Secretary Chao that gave some great insight. Again, kind of the behind the scenes of what makes all of those things actually happen. John Thune is someone who, even if people don't know if they saw him, they'd say, oh, got to be a senator. Like, he's right out of central casting. But as the Republican whip, it is a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I remember during my time in D.C., him and his office really being about the communication strategy that was equal to the policy strategy. And so there's a lot of things under there that maybe we don't know about John Thune that I think are worthy of this Titan of Public Service Award.
Oh, not only is he a gentleman and his policy chops are just amazing, but something that we don't know, he's tall. He plays basketball, and he's got it. He's got his game, and he plays in the Senate gym regularly. He will not disappoint. But I just want to pivot back to the Hatch Foundation for a moment. We spend a lot of time. We get involved in public policy through our reports and our op-eds, and we're pleased with that. But we love bringing folks together within the community, and our convening power, in my view, is second to none. And we thrive in bringing some of our nation's top political voices to Utah. So I hope your listeners will take us up on this opportunity. It's a big deal to bring some of these, I would say, political heavyweights to the Beehive State. For those who are interested and want to attend, ticket and sponsorship opportunities available on our website at orrinhatchfoundation.org. That's with two R's, ORRIN, hatchfoundation.org. Boyd, it's going to be a great night. I know you like to come to it, and I hope you'll plan on coming this year.
Well, we'll stick that right on the calendar, and it will be a good one. And it is one of the things that the Hatch Foundation does amazingly well is that power to convene. And sometimes you think of that in the context of just big events, but it's bringing thought leaders into spaces for crucial conversations. And you've done that not only with your Titan of Public Service Awards, but there's so many others, including some of these extraordinary debates that have been held in amazing places. And so I do think that ability to convene and bring thought leaders together for thoughtful conversations, thoughtful debate, not kumbaya moments, but real policy debate is really second to none. And Matt, thanks so much for joining us today. Very excited, a very worthy nomination and recipient of the 2024 Titan of Public Service Award to John Thune. Again, that event will be held August 14th in Salt Lake City, and you can find all the information there at the Orrin Hatch Foundation. You can check them out online as well. Matt, thanks so much for joining us today. Always appreciate it.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right, we're going to go ahead and step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. And when we come back, more Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Tammy Kikuchi. KSL's top local story this hour. A pickup truck driver is under arrest after the Highway Patrol says the driver smashed into a Highway Patrol car stopped on the side of I-15. This happened on the 90th South off-ramp where troopers had stopped another vehicle for a DUI investigation. Lieutenant Cameron Roden says they had flares set out and the patrol car had lights flashing. The truck driver is also being investigated for DUI. Two major parties are having their state conventions Saturday in Salt Lake Valley. The candidates will pick in advance. The candidates they pick in advance to the Utah primary election in June. Democratic state delegates will gather at Cottonwood High School. Republicans will meet at the Salt Palace. Both parties will also choose who will represent them at the national convention later this year. A Utah couple are grateful to get their missing cat after it was found in California. KSL News Radio's Michael Commit has more.
Carrie Clark and her husband didn't notice when their indoor feline Galena hopped into an Amazon return box before it was taped shut and sent off. An Amazon factory worker in Los Angeles discovered the cat nearly a week later, but Galena was taken to the vet where she was eventually reunited with her owners.
Clark says Galena would not have survived if she wasn't microchipped. Your money at this moment, well, the market has closed and all of them were down. The Dow was down 375, S&P down 23, and NASDAQ down 100. Rain is here for at least a couple of days. We'll have a look at weather and traffic next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
At Progressive, we know how much you love your recreational vehicles, so we decided to record this commercial in an RV.
With a family on vacation.
Mom, who are these people?
Oh, that's Flo and Jamie. They're recording a commercial, sweetie.
Don't they do that in the studio?
Normally.
No.
But we wanted to feature a family who bundled their home and RV and saved with Progressive.
Yeah, it looks like you're all out of chips.
Okay, I think we'll just drop you off at the next gas station.
Bundle your home and other vehicles with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Every business faces challenges, but complicated, expensive, and uncertain shipping shouldn't be one of them.
With USPS Ground Advantage from the United States Postal Service, you can avoid all the noise.
No more unexpected surcharges, hidden fees, or complex rate structures.
It's just easy, cost-effective, and dependable shipping. Tune your business's frequency to success and turn shipping to your advantage. Learn how at USPS.com/advantage. USPS Ground Advantage. Simple, affordable, reliable.
Are you stressing about your IRS tax problems? Have you received notices from the IRS threatening to garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, or seize your property? You need an ally. Allies Tax Relief has tax attorneys and enrolled agents that are ready to fight for you. They have saved millions for taxpayers just like you. Allies Tax Relief can help put a stop to IRS collections and, most importantly, negotiate your tax debt. Here's Brenda, a happy client of Allies Tax Relief.
I owed the IRS around $57,000, and they're about to start garnishing my paychecks. I heard a commercial on the radio about Allies Tax Relief, so I thought I'd give them a call. After a day, they were able to at least stop the garnishments, and after a few months of negotiations, I walked away owing the IRS only $301.
If you owe the IRS, call Allies Tax Relief right now for your free consultation. Call 800-230-5174. 800-230-5174. That's 800-230-5174.
Tonight on KSL.
That's a huge increase.
A lot of Utahns are getting sticker shock.
I called them up to ask them what was going on.
By the surging cost of insurance. News specialist Daniel Woodruff uncovers the painful truth.
I've been in the business 40 years and I've never ever seeing this hard of a market.
And reveals the simple things you can do to drive the costs down.
Definitely paid off.
Surging insurance, an unaffordable Utah report. Tonight on KSL 5 News at 10.
Sometimes owning a small business means making big upgrades. Make them happen with a small business equipment loan from Cypress Credit Union. For a limited time, get a rate discount of 0.50% APR and make the most of affordable credit union rates. Let Cypress help you purchase or upgrade your commercial equipment today. Apply online at cypresscu.com.
Cypress Credit Union. Your future is our future.
Federally insured by NCUA. Equal Opportunity Lender.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Ricky, we have some emergency traffic.
Jordan, we do, Tammy. This is in West Jordan. We want to just alert drivers. We've had a really serious injury accident, a rollover crash impacting traffic on northbound Mountain View corridor at eastbound 90th South. Officers are going to be shutting down all eastbound traffic for a short period. Traffic is getting through the intersection but clogged because we have lanes blocked in multiple directions. You want to consider an alternate route. Also, for those traveling southbound on I-15, a crash over to the right shoulder at the I-215 junction. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Scattered showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. More rain and mountain snow expected tomorrow. Highs today 68, which was really early on in the day. And 50s Friday and Saturday. Right now, 59 degrees, mostly cloudy skies. I'm Tammy Kikuchi from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson. On Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, our nation's been debating about the right action that could, should, or would be taken regarding climate and environmental policy for a long time. Often pretty divisive in how we've gone about that. Different voices have different ideas about the best course of action to take. And while we all want to leave the planet in a little better condition than we found it and make it better for those who will follow after us, there's an important and crucial voice that's often missing in the big battles and the hyper-partisan rhetoric that we often see when we talk about climate and environment. And that a crucial voice is the American taxpayer. So how do we start having an and kind of conversation and a better conversation to produce better outcomes? Devin Hartman is with the R Street Institute, had a great piece in the Washington Examiner today talking about the fact that taxpayers need to be included in all of this clean conversation. And Devin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
So obviously Earth Week this week, it's the annual reminder of all of those things. Give us your sense in terms of where are we in this conversation and how do we get to that better conversation that does include the voice of the people as well?
Absolutely. So you teed it up very nicely. So Earth Week is usually that week where, all the Greens are very excited. We're thinking about environmental stewardship and our responsibility to future generations. And then the taxpayer groups are cringing because the green agenda historically has been very antagonistic to taxpayer interests. And that's unfortunate. It doesn't have to be the case. And in fact, a lot of the secret sauce of what has been working to really reduce emissions and what will work going forward, the really key catalysts, are things that actually are beneficial to taxpayer interests. So it's really about shifting the narrative from climate progress as measured in a political proxy by how much taxpayers are forced to spend to let's focus on what mechanisms unleash private capital to solve a problem that they're already willing to go after, even without subsidies.
Yeah, and so let's dive into that because I think that's worth unpacking today because usually we get teed up with the fake fight and the false choice. You either want to put an oil rig under Delicate Arch in southern Utah, or you're just going to shut down everything and we're going to go back to no gas, no cars, no electricity, no anything. And obviously the better conversations in between. But you put forward in your piece some of the things that we have to get in there, and you alluded to one of those, which I think is real crucial, and that is dealing with the subsidizing, government subsidizing our way to deal with climate. Explain that for us.
Sure. So usually sort of like the green orthodoxy that's kind of persisted for the last couple decades is to really pick certain technologies and then either mandate it or subsidize it. And that can reduce emissions, and it used to be somewhat more effective in the past, but it always ran afoul sort of consumer taxpayer interests. But what we're seeing with market conditions moving forward is that markets are extremely motivated to deploy clean capital already. The real issue is the red tape hanging up the process here. And so what we're actually seeing is that the things that are really the drivers of clean energy, in particular in this country, it's more like a kinked hose, and subsidies really just turn up the pressure, but you're not getting much more throughput because you really have to address the bottleneck in the kinked hose. And so even just one category of regulatory reform would have more emissions reduction than the entire Inflation Reduction Act. And that was considered to be like the hallmark piece of legislation. And I think a big thing that people are starting to realize now is that legislation, which originally passed a couple of years ago, thinking, yeah, it'll be about a $370 billion hit on the clean energy side for taxpayers, but maybe it's just a one-time thing. It pushes us through this decade, and then these technologies stand on their own. But what we're actually seeing is that there's a condition in there that won't be met because of the regulatory environment being so restrictive. And that is going to put taxpayers probably on the hook for trillions of dollars. And it's mostly going to subsidize what the private sector is trying to build anyways, and oftentimes can't get regulatory approval for.
Yeah, and so often that is the case. You end up hurting the very thing you want to help, and the
Exactly.
regulatory thing becomes such a big issue. And we've had several people on this show talking about how frustrated they are because they were excited about a particular kind of energy or a new technology that was emerging or a cleaner way to do something, but they can't even start because of the red tape, because of the regulation. And so a lot of these things included in the Inflation Reduction Act haven't even started because it takes years and years to get through the red tape, the regulatory, the lawsuits, and all of those things, all the while slowing down that innovation because we're subsidizing some other things at the same time.
Absolutely. And I think a big way to kind of bridge the divide here is to frame it from like a more of a moral framework. We have a responsibility to future generations to leave them with a wealthier and cleaner world. And we can only do that if we have our financial house in order and we're good stewards of the environment. And we have to be cognizant of what policy architecture delivers on that. And sometimes there's trade-offs between the two objectives, and you have to make sure the good outweighs the bad. We don't do that sometimes, but a lot of times we overlook how much bad public policy is already in place. And if we remove those impediments, we can not only drive emissions reductions much quicker, but we can also better adapt to climate change. Think of all the subsidies that we have right now in place that actually put people in harm's way. We encourage people in many cases to develop in areas that are very prone to wildfire risk or severe drought, or right in the middle of the worst path line for hurricanes. We can't be subsidizing that behavior because we're then reducing the market signal, especially in the insurance industry, to appropriately respond to that risk. And as climate change worsens, we need to make sure we're not diluting that signal from the risk. We need to make sure that the private sector has the freedom to price that risk and let individuals respond.
Yeah, so important. And I love the way you framed this in your piece at the Washington Examiner, talking about, again, it's an and conversation, that we can get the taxpayers and the environmental interests. We can have good stewardship of the land, and we can do things that are good for the American people, for the economy, and for all of those things. I want to spend just one quick minute on the subsidy piece, because I don't think we highlight that enough, that sometimes when government is picking the winners and losers by subsidizing usually organizations that have an army of lawyers and lobbyists, that we often cut out a lot of the real innovation in the market. And even on things like solar panels, you had some of that great innovation going on, but then you had this massive Solyndra piece of the puzzle and all of those subsidies, and suddenly the innovation that everybody wants for the environment actually gets slowed down because of what's happening on that front.
Exactly. The thing that we want out of the clean industries is we want them to be competing in the marketplace in a way that drives innovation, because competitive enterprise is motivated to cut costs. When you dilute that signal with subsidies, the competition that should be happening in the marketplace shifts to a competition to receive subsidies. And there's a whole new industry that's been stood up here in D.C. just to secure the massive amount of pork that the federal government is handing out here. And I can't tell you how many of the entities that are lining up with their hands out to get this funding will privately admit on the side, we don't actually need it. But obviously we want to make sure we get it so we can report that back to our shareholders, and that's their responsibility. But guess what? The power of American industry would be much better spent not trying to milk taxpayers, but out there competing and trying to outdo their competitors by driving innovation in the economy. Yeah. And I'm just very excited in particular because I think it's a great way to speak to younger folks and to really get conservative folks more involved in the environmental conversation productively. And, you know, someone like John Curtis has been a really well outspoken voice on this, that there's conservative approaches to environmental improvement that are really underappreciated, and areas really where a lot of good limited government pro-market folks can really lead on these issues, and we can really have a lot more progress across the board.
Yeah, fantastic. Great insight. Devin Hartman is the R Street Institute's Director of Energy and Environmental Policy, and demonstrating we can have an and conversation when it comes to being careful stewards of the environment and making sure we're doing the right things, both in terms of spending, in terms of our communities, in terms of creating a better future together. Devin, thanks so much for joining us today. Great insight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's Devin Hartman from the R Street Institute. And again, it's an and conversation. It's not either or. Don't buy into the fake fight and the false choice. And when we make sure that that competition is rolling, rather than rewarding the lawyers and the lobbyists and giving big companies who don't need it money that they don't need but will take just to keep the competition out of the space, if we want real clean, real green, we got to make sure we're getting that competition engine firing as well. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. Final thoughts on Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
When the weather warms up, it's like a stampede, except instead of dust stirred up by hundreds of hooves, it's a cascade of phone calls to Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Soon as the sun shines and the snow's gone, people want new windows and frames from Utah's #1 custom window maker, and the wait for installation grows longer. But right now, you can get near the front of the line by calling for a quote and get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's on top of the incredible savings for the highest quality double-pane windows and frames, any style, any color. See, at Advanced Window Products, they actually build the windows here in Utah, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. There's no middleman, and they can pass the savings on to you. They even offer buy now, pay later. So get in before the wait grows longer and get the $2,500 off. Get your new windows this spring. Make the call. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Join KSL in the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1 at the Salt Lake NPS Store, 1600 Empire Road in Salt Lake City, mpsstore.com.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and it is a regular occurrence. I'll have someone approach me. I'll have a friend call me, and they'll say, okay, let's talk about Connecticut. And I tell them about the experience Dee and I have had with 2 different systems in 2 different homes. And simply, Connecticut is the best. Now, I love to give these little science experiments occasionally. For example, now if your back can handle this, lift a 40-pound bag of salt just about to the height of your knees. Now lift the same bag to your chest 3 times in a row. Lifting 40 pounds to your knees once is easier than lifting 40 pounds to your chest 3 times, right? Well, you just demonstrated a major Connecticut soft water advantage. It is so much more efficient than anything else out on the market today. 2/3 less salt consumed in a Connecticut system. So I'd urge you to check out Connecticut, just as I advise my friends and acquaintances. The number to call is 801-576-8600 or go to softwaterutah.com.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Utah, you love the spring, so don't spend it painting. Do what Mike did. He called Rhino Shield.
Our home is basically a contemporary with stucco finish, and we just started noticing that the paint was just fading and the stucco would just look like garbage. We had received a postcard from Rhino Shield, and we decided to take a look at it.
Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
The process with Rhino Shield and their crew, they were just very conscientious. We had problems in the past with painters. They leave debris and everything. Well, we didn't have that with Rhino Shield.
Now you can get the guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
The thing about Rhino Shield, the heat gain has been reduced, and we save $70 a month. You don't hear that about any type of paint.
Remember, Utah, this is a limited time offer, so call now, 435-246-4466 or rhinoshieldwest.com. That's rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, do it now. Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Beat the spring cleaning rush with big savings and priority booking by calling our heroes at ZeroRest. Think about the dust, dander, and bacteria living and breeding in your carpet, upholstery, air ducts, and more with nowhere to go. Did you know as many as 1 in 5 Americans suffer from allergies caused by particles frequently found in the air inside most homes? Not only is indoor air quality an issue year-round, but especially now that allergens such as pollen are coming out of hibernation, ready to invade your home. If you or anyone in your family suffer from allergies or asthma, or you just want cleaner, healthier air, ZeroRes can help. Check out the 3,300 raving customer reviews online with a 4.8 Google rating. Right now when you call ZeroRes, get one room ZeroResify from Salt Lake's #1 carpet cleaner starting at just $25 with a 4-room minimum to get that true spring cleaning feel. Call ZeroRes right now, 801-288-9376, or go online to ZeroRes.com and say you want the KSL special. ZeroRes. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tammy Kikuchi. First, hazmat and fire crews had their hands full cleaning up a fuel spill in Parley's Canyon. Second, family homelessness rates are up dramatically in Utah. And third, football junkies, get out the popcorn. The NFL draft starts tonight. 59 degrees and cloudy skies in downtown Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we round out the program today, I want to get to a thought that just keeps coming back to me of late, and that is that the real test of a nation is what it does when it doesn't have to do anything. So I want you to think about this a little bit different today. So the real test of a nation is, what does it do when it doesn't have to do anything? So, for example, a country that's facing a famine or dealing with an epidemic or confronting a large population stuck in intergenerational poverty, that's all they can focus on. They can't focus on anything else. But the success of the United States of America has it positioned with both the opportunity and the capacity to tackle some pretty significant challenges, not just here at home, but around the world. And yet so often we do the path of least resistance and we choose to ignore them because we can. It's a very un-American thing to do, but we're getting kind of good at it. We're getting really good at kicking cans down the road because we don't have to deal with it today. We can put it off. So dealing with something like Social Security, we can put that off for a while. It's not going to happen for another decade or so before it gets real trouble. So rather than take the political heat of doing something about it today, we'll just say everything's okay. It's good. Or we look at things like the $34 trillion of national debt. That will crush the economy. It will hurt the poor and the most vulnerable the most over time. And yet, nobody's calling for the payment. And so we're okay because we don't have to. Now, the challenge, the worry for me is this, is that when a country gets so good and so adept at solving problems, maximizing opportunities, that the question then becomes not about whether or not it can achieve something, it's will it. So if you look at some of the things that we've been able to do as a country, we got a pretty amazing list. Man on the moon? Check. Cures for all kinds of diseases? Check. Transcontinental Railroad, piece of cake. Interstate highway, got it, done, check, check. 2 world wars, a Cold War, check, check, check. List goes on and on and on. We have all kinds of things we get done. And I actually agree with President Joe Biden, who often says it's hard to think of anything that a United States of America can't get done. And I think that is the danger of not just our society, but every advanced society, the ability to ignore problems. The luxury to ignore leads to the atrophy of that problem-solving muscle that built the nation in the first place. And so the more we kick cans down the road, the more we avoid the tough and unpleasant, uncomfortable conversation because we can, that muscle, that problem-solving muscle, that big idea muscle, that coming together to solve hard issues muscle atrophies. And then what? I'm convinced America does not have a capability problem when it comes to anything, whether it's being careful stewards of the land and dealing with the environment, whether it is about poverty and upward mobility, housing, health care, border security, immigration. We don't have a capability or a capacity problem. And sadly, the longer we put things off, eventually that luxury of the never-ending debate, which is sort of where we go now, because we don't have to. We have the luxury of not solving problems. So what do we do instead? We create fake fights and false choice and very long debates that are really good for politics and political campaigns, but are not good for solving problems. And many of our nation's problems are actually pretty simple to solve. Not easy. Simple and easy are two different things. And sadly, in so many cases today, we don't even make a good attempt at addressing them anymore. And there are very few countries on this planet that have the luxury of debating and considering the pros and cons of whatever it is, building a border wall, reforming the criminal justice system, cutting or raising taxes, addressing health care costs, protecting the environment, reforming entitlement programs, reinventing the education system. It's not because there's a question about whether America can or cannot deal with any of those issues. Our problem is that we have become so comfortable in the mire and being mired in the political minutia of debating or talking about things that we don't ever have to address them. It's this false sense of security that if we just argue about it, that's sufficient. Well, it's not, because it doesn't produce any solutions. Now, it's great for campaigns. It's good if you want to try to gain control of the House or the Senate or win the White House or win a local election. All good for that. So we have to get back to debating. Because if we don't get back to real debate about real issues with real results, then we just keep having this. I think contending with the great difficulties actually sharpens and strengthens the capacity of a country. I believe it was Abigail Adams who wrote that great necessities call out great virtues. And I'm one of those who still firmly and passionately believes that the American people will respond with unrivaled capacity and commitment when a leader with vision invites them to be part of a cause. Part of a cause, not a caustic debate. So just doing the social media battles, again, very interesting, not very important, rarely produces any results. And I think we're getting to that space where we no longer will have the luxury of procrastinating our pressing problems. Leaders are going to have to call on the citizens, and the citizens have to call on the leaders to recognize it's time to tackle the big issues of our time. All right, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something today that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. Right now in Salt Lake City, temperatures falling. We're at 59 degrees. KSL's top story